And Tobago, and welcome to Talking Point here on WESN Content Capital. My name is Keaton Shaw. Some of you, just as I am this morning, will be celebrating because it's Friday, it's the end of the week, and for some it's just a couple more days to go before they can enjoy a break. But quite a lot to discuss this morning, and in doing so, I'm joined by my co-host and colleague alongside me, Mr. Sean Michael Small. Good morning, Sean. Thank God it's Friday. Thank God.
I mean, time is going. Should we really be grateful that another day has passed, and do we have resolution to challenges and obstacles, and do we have good news on the horizon? Well, I do think, though, to some extent the shipping situation globally has improved, but then the irony, I think, is I have heard, I'm not entirely sure, but there's a reverse where now instead of having a backlog of container vessels in the LA ports, there's a backlog of container vessels by the Chinese ports. I'm not entirely sure what that means with regards to cost of shipping and how that'll affect us with goods. A lot of distribution in America has moved to the East Coast. We get a significant amount of stuff, I believe, manufactured in East Asia. So I'm not entirely sure, again, how that would necessarily benefit or help us. But as economies continue to adjust to the situation globally, we ourselves in Trinidad could look forward to some relief. The flip side is things are still very volatile, and we ourselves are not necessarily that well positioned. I think, too, there is hope that perhaps we could, the dragon feel and exploiting that, and what would that mean? But that's a long-term thing. We have short-term issues right now. So we'll see. I do think, going back to the topic yesterday, one of the benefits of someone like Richie Sukai being made a senator, hopefully, is that there's a greater voice with regards to private business and enterprise and industry and how that could be further developed. And it's not necessarily just like the big players, the big corporations. I would assume he would have some idea of the mid-level players, some of the small players as well. Given his Chamber of Commerce, the location.
Oh, my friend, you said so much and you've just gone all over the place with it. But I go back to my opening point with everything that you've just stated. Thank God that you're alive. Thank God that you can see another day. And yes, we can be grateful. It's a new day, and even though time is flying by, let's look at it from... Listen!
Like you had a lot of fun last night.
Thank God it's a day where you can enjoy, at least another day where you can enjoy your 3 breakfasts. Yes, breakfasts.
No, it's not 3 breakfasts.
You could enjoy your 3 breakfasts and 2 lunches.
So wait, so if I had a container, right, let's just substitute things for the sake of simplicity. If I had a container with toast in one and butter in the other, that's 2 breakfasts. That's what you're telling me?
It depends on how you eat it.
Oh.
How far apart do you eat
okay.
it? How far apart do you consume it?
If I have bacon in one, eggs in one, and bread in one, right? First of all, I eat my breakfast at the same time. There's a small salad, there's some fruit, and there's some egg.
Doesn't he sound so privileged?
Right? The salad is well, I'm not gonna lie, tomatoes these days seem like a luxury item. If I get cheese in my egg, that also seems like a luxury item. The fruit is sometimes it's local, sometimes it's not local, so that seems like a luxury item. So if you want to hit me on that, fine. But say a handful of grapes is 1 breakfast, and 2 eggs is the entirety of a second breakfast, and some lettuce is 3rd breakfast.
My word, you sound so privileged. Some people can't even have grapes for breakfast. Some people can't afford to have any of those things you just said. We have to wait until,
Okay, in fact, and sometimes I have like a unripe Portugal, okay? If that is 1 breakfast for you, well then I don't know what to tell you. Folks, for 10 cents a day, for 10 cents a day, you could sponsor Keaton Shaw.
Exactly. Do you see how easy it is for me to maintain myself? That man just called out a 3-course meal for breakfast, excellent, and he won't even share a peg of his Portugal.
First of all,
he won't even share a peg of his Portugal.
Folks, everybody should be trying to have some fruit, some vegetables, and egg is good protein. I know people are scared of the egg. Egg is a good nutritional protein, of which you know, what can I say? I don't get bacon with my breakfast. I don't necessarily have meat with my breakfast. What do you want from me? What do you want from me? Right?
I think the mere fact that we've just debated this for the last 5 minutes and turned this, turn this into a topic by itself. I think we've done brilliantly,
right?
Ladies and gentlemen. But anyway,
I have high blood pressure. I need to watch my health.
For all that food that he's eating, and he needs to watch his health.
Again, one Portugal is not a meal, Keaton.
Anyway, as we continue this morning, Sean, don't worry. We all accept who you are.
I mean, if a salad is a meal to you, I guess this is a young people thing. You know, that's a whole meal. Lettuce and cucumber is a whole meal to you. All right, folks, for 10 cents a day, you could help feed a Keaton Shaw.
And if you can find any lettuce or tomato that costs 10 cents, please let me know, since it's a young people thing. Because, oh, I'd love that. That'd be the greatest gift of all. Because you could afford lettuce and tomato in these times. It's not that expensive, but bloody hell, prices across the board are going up.
Well, that's the thing. Everything is expensive. I mean, I keep telling my mom not to buy certain things like broccoli. That don't make sense to me. But sweet peppers, I think I mentioned yesterday. I used to like to buy sweet peppers of different colors to make certain dishes, but I am not about that right now.
Our head of news actually did a bit of research about 2-3 days ago. And part of the assignment was actually to go to the grocery and walked around the supermarket, looked at basic items that a household will pick up. And actually what we did is that we made a list, and we actually gave an estimation of what the prices may be. And after that, we had a budget of which we were trying to build in our entire grocery list offer. So she ended up going to the grocery. She went around, she looked at every single item, and she took the prices and everything that we budgeted for. And the budget wasn't something to say that we were naive. It was actually with reference to the times that we're in. So we took that into account as well, the rate of inflation, so on and so forth. One sweet pepper, or as some people will call it, a bell pepper, sweet pepper actually cost $12. All right,
That's cheap. That's cheap.
Green. Hold on.
Right now, that's cheap.
What I couldn't,
green.
What I couldn't figure out is why was the red bell pepper $10 more?
And
why?
the yellow and orange, yellow/orange will be $10 more as well.
Yeah. And what was amazing is that you can get a bottle of olive oil for $40, right? But there's so many other items, local produce, right, that were bloody expensive.
I think so. I guess at this point we're now into because it's not necessary for nutrition. For nutrition, you could probably just get. I think there's some minor differences, but I think you could just get by, with green bell peppers. And to my mind, sweet peppers are not necessarily like, oh, I'm on a diet, so I need more sweet peppers. There are other vegetables which will come first. More filling, cheaper, easier to get, the amount of mass, the amount of nutritional value, because there's just more of it, right? I think though, like restaurants, if you're trying to, that level of food now where you're trying to have a pretty plate, a pretty dish, so you'll want different colors. So I actually had an exam for a course I was doing. It was the journalism/mass communication course had us do an etiquette. Mass communication degree had us do an etiquette course, and COVID hit. So before we would have had to do like a somewhat formal dinner at a restaurant, but COVID hit, so we had to do it at home. So, my overachieving self decided I will make a meal, and that included having multicolored bell peppers, and I did a little vegetable side dish for the dinner plates that I was going to be tested on, so it will kind of look a little. But at the time, this is at the start of COVID, so while it wasn't necessarily like the cheapest thing, we were talking like $20 for the two or something like that, which to me, maybe I spent $30 or $40 for all the bell peppers. I might have gotten like a multi-pack with 3 different colors. It might have been $20 to $30 for 3 of them. Yeah. Something like that, right? And it was still, a little bit more than I would have liked to pay.
I actually don't think it was, but it was even $30. I think it would have been closer to 20.
It might have been 20.
Because even now, the cost of pimento is absolutely ridiculous. You know, so it's I mean,
and then there's the rarity of it as well, right? There's the rarity. It's easy to import things like celery. I think celeries are pretty cheap and a pretty decent vegetable and taste. We could export, because it could also lead to a wider industry of exporting our style of food, not just in diaspora, because I know in Canada, like roti is popular in some circles with the Canadians, and that to some extent is a Trini, you know, modification of Indian food, I guess you could say. It might be the best way to put it, at least that I am aware of. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I think part of the main issue is economies of scale. So if we try to compete with the same food, it's just not going to work, because we'll be more expensive. The other thing though, and this ties into economies of scale, because when you have economies of scale, you're benefiting from the size, you know, because there'll be certain costs that you'll have to just have initially up front. So when you have a larger scale, that cost is spread out more. Also transportation, when you transport with larger vehicles, if you basically like double the dimensions, you increase the actual volume times 8. I can't remember the exact math. But one of the things that economies of scale benefits as well is quality control, because quality control becomes cheaper when you have a larger and larger scale of production. It becomes, in some ways, cheaper, not necessarily easier. And there is always the complaints. And we saw this when I went to Tobago. We were shopping for some stuff at the local grocers. And, you know, some of the local produce does not stand up to some of the foreign produce. So now with Shadow Benny, I don't know if you're going to necessarily have like a large-scale operation abroad. You know, there's cilantro, which is similar. So to some extent, we'll have to compete with the similar alternatives that might be preferred.
Don't have to get into too much of the specifics, but we have to go for a break very shortly. And just to bring you up to date with some of the latest news in Trinidad and Tobago, the acting police commissioner, McDonald Jacob, he returns from vacation today. There is a bit of a limbo there with respect to the acting commissioner of police, because his contract is also due to end today. So that has to be sorted out.
Oh boy.
With respect to the president, a new president, Trinidad and Tobago's 7th president, will be elected by the Electoral College today, where they meet at 1:30 p.m. The Electoral College makes up both the upper and lower chambers of the House. So if things go according to plan, later this afternoon, the 7th president will be announced. It's very much expected to be the government's nomination, Christine Kangaloo. Furthermore, there's a lot of news articles, very interesting. I'm reading it this morning. Fortunately, we can't get into all those details, but according to the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, 4 gangs in Maloney and Pinto are behind major crimes. Again, that's an analysis put forward by the TTPS. It's illegal to be a gang member or illegal to participate in any gang activities. If you can have this analysis, I'm trying to figure out exactly why it is so difficult to eradicate gangs. And finally, a senior cop, without pointing to any one state entity or state enterprise, he wasn't very much specific, and this is Senior Superintendent Kerwin Francis of the Northern Division, said corrupt officials are responsible for giving leverage to gangs engaged in illegal quarrying. Again, if you have that information, if you can make a statement like that, it tells me that you have some form of evidence. Why is nothing? Fair point. I wouldn't argue. But
our question is why we can't bridge the gap.
The thing is that if you come out publicly and make such statements, you know, what are you doing about it? Gathering intelligence, and I even question the intelligence gathering of the TTPS sometimes. But those are the latest, and a lot more to be discussed. But for now, we take our first break, and upon our return, well, a lot more to get into. Stay tuned.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best birthday gifts are at thebesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
Well, folks, welcome back to Talking Points. As you know, COVID was one of the main topics when this show started, as we were more or less, well, at least you could say, the majority of the pandemic and the lockdowns, especially during the largest wave of COVID, was when this show launched. And even now, there are concerns, and the Prime Minister had a press conference to address those concerns with regards to the upcoming, quote-unquote, mother of all carnivals, while there seems to be a rise in COVID cases, not necessarily, though, reaching the heights that we have seen previously, but a rise nevertheless, including the numbers trending upwards, still small, but definitely trending upwards, so much so that the health officials in the Ministry of Health at that press conference noted both the number of increased cases or incidents as well as the increased utilization of the still operating parallel healthcare system. Now, Carnival is still on, and the Ministry of Health has been putting out ads trying to encourage people to get vaccinated. Vaccinations is one of the most divisive topics that has come along throughout the international community for quite some time. Every nation, to some extent, I believe, has had to tackle with this debate with regards to, do vaccines work? Are vaccines safe? Should people get vaccinated? What about the lies that people perceive around the vaccines or the untruths being said by health officials? And of course, because of the internet, what we see in one country affects what we do and say over here. So when we see things that look maybe less than stellar in America, Britain, other parts of the world, in America, Britain, other parts of the world, China, the UK, We then, of course, where the vaccines are manufactured, we then now interpret that and make use of that with regards to coming to our conclusion. And right now, the country is just over 50% vaccinated, but the Ministry of Health would like to see more. Well, here's the problem that we in Talking Point have. Because at the press conference, also included was Professor Christine Carrington.
Yes.
And she made an emphatic case that the vaccine is not meant to protect against infection. It's meant to protect against disease and potential death. But then we saw this, we noticed this coming out in one of the daily newspapers from the Ministry of Health. So let's take a look at the first ad there. If it's coming up on your screen. And as you could see with the messaging, folks, the main part of the messaging is, don't end up playing mass in your bed, take the vaccine instead. So,
some people would want to play mass in their bed, but anyway, continue.
So, the thing is though, the Prime Minister has been vaccinated, or at least he has claimed to be vaccinated. There are some people who want to question, did he really take the vaccine? Is that a fake? Well, he claims to have been vaccinated, and he also has publicly released that he's had COVID multiple times. We, of course, know people who have been vaccinated that have gotten COVID. I myself was vaccinated, got COVID. Thankfully, the majority of my worst symptoms was not necessarily directly from COVID. I got a secondary bacterial infection, which happens with COVID, unfortunately, and is something to be wary of as well. So, we were vaccinated. The Prime Minister was vaccinated. Quite a good bit of people were vaccinated, and they got the virus. Now, again, let's go back to what Professor Carrington said. It will protect you from disease. That's what vaccines are meant for. Well, and specifically for COVID, the professional messaging has always been that. My issue is when the political messaging now says things like, well, don't end up playing mass in your bed, take the vaccine instead. Because that implies it will protect you from the infection.
No, but okay, let's not say political communication. Let's not refer to it as that.
Okay, government health official communication.
From the Ministry of Health in particular, I don't want to say political, I don't want to, say it's specific.
Sorry, political doesn't mean parties, but just not medical.
So the thing is with Professor Christine Carrington and what has been out there is that what the COVID-19 vaccine does, as is with any vaccine, I think my co-host just mentioned it, but I'll try and elaborate as much as I can. What it does is that it really helps your body, it builds up a certain immunity where you can still contract the virus, and it gives you a better fighting chance. It doesn't make you immune, fully immune, 100% immune, where you can't contract it at all, and there's still a possibility that if you take the vaccine, you still succumb to it. But what it does, it gives you a fighting chance. It gives you a better chance. And no vaccine around the world will ever prevent you from getting any virus. And this is where I think education and information is absolutely important. I think the messaging is conflicting because this is, I think 2 years ago, with respect to the budget when it was read on the station, I looked at Minister Marvin Gonzalez, I said, I think the government has failed in their vaccine campaign because of the misleading messaging at times. It was rather conflicting. It got individuals very confused. This thing about stop the spread.
Yes.
Stop the spread.
Take the jab to stop the spread.
Right. So the thing is that even if you take the vaccine, it doesn't necessarily stop the spread. Again, it builds up a certain immunity in the population where, again, you can treat yourself at home where the severity of the virus is not going to be that as compared to a person who may be unvaccinated or a person who suffers with great comorbidities. So this stop the spread and don't play mass in your bed, take the vaccine instead. The thing is that we've advocated for the vaccine. We're still of the belief that you take the vaccine. We're still of the belief that it gives you a better fighting chance. And this is why my co said it's a very divisive argument. It's a very divisive debate. But the thing is, publicly, Sean and I have, we've taken our 2 shots as well as a booster. And the thing is that thankfully, thus far, considering everything and considering what we've had to do and where we go, we've been okay. That does not mean that we are still very much complacent and we don't take precautions. However, ladies and gentlemen, let me just tell you, if you take the COVID-19 vaccine, I'm no longer forcing anybody or pushing anybody. I'm just essentially saying I support you taking the COVID-19 vaccine. It really is your choice. I've come to that point where we've done as much as we can in terms of education and advocating. But I'm going to be very much honest with you. I believe that information and data is more powerful and a greater resource, greater asset than oil. And I will tell you that I'm not going to mislead you. If you take the COVID-19 vaccine, there is still a possibility that you can contract COVID-19 and you will still end up having to stay in your bed.
You'll have to stay home.
Yes.
You could be healthy as a horse, but responsibly speaking, you could contract COVID, you'll be fine, but you'll still have to miss mass, right? And there's no way around that. And I think, here's the thing, when the vaccines first came out, because they were tailored for the initial set of COVID, right? It didn't mutate too radically just yet. So that's when the vaccines first came out, it was about the efficacy rates. That was the big thing. That was the big selling point that the pharmaceutical companies were trying to push. With the mRNA, Pfizer, Moderna saying, oh, we're 95%, 96%, 92%, whatever. And Johnson & Johnson is only 80-something%. But initially, a lot of the neutral medical professionals basically said, look, efficacy is one thing, but what we really care about bad, serious disease, so you end up having to take an ICU bed, and death, we need to take that off the table so that we could better manage the situation and people don't die. However, I think somewhere along the line, governments decided to say, stop the spread, because, that's what happened with polio. It stopped polio by vaccination. Cool, that way for polio, but COVID mutates a lot more. And it's reached the point now where they could make a vaccine for each mutation, but as Professor Carrington said, that's somewhat of a losing battle because they did it for, I think it might have been Gamma or one of the variants last year that was on the rise. And, well, we're on Omicron now, and I think there might be talks of the next variant that might come out with all of the infections coming out of China. So, right now, though, the initial vaccines with regards to protecting against serious disease and life, they still seem to in conditions like obesity, diabetes, lung issues, heart issues that exacerbate COVID. They're still relatively young, and you want to take that roll of the dice. That is up to you. Going into Carnival, I would still think it's a good idea to get vaccinated if you have not been. But
again, a couple of things. Just to be clear with you, getting vaccinated does not necessarily prevent you from contracting the infection or prevent you from succumbing to it. Very unfortunate, but let's be practical at this point. What it does, it just gives you a better fighting chance. And I think it's better, as that advertisement from the minister said, I think that is a more appropriate campaign, which is to build your defense. So I give them kudos to that. Yes, that is a much more appropriate campaign. We need to actually stop this thing about saying stop the spread. Because, again, information is crucial, ladies and gentlemen, and this is where conspiracy theories arise from this. We have one individual here who constantly says the vaccine is watered down, that the vaccinated people are actually spreading the virus. That individual contracted COVID-19. But whatever it is, as we continue this morning, I want to just quickly raise a point with respect to Carnival. That you're suggesting that people get vaccinated for Carnival, and I agree with you. However, there's something to note. There are a lot of people, and this issue was actually raised yesterday amongst a circle of colleagues, there are a lot of people who are now going to social media and are selling fat tickets. It's absolutely normal over a season, by the way. People get tickets, and for some reason they can't go again. But the amount that you're seeing that is being sold online now from individuals who purchase tickets.
I think money might also contribute, like finances.
So there are two factors, and this is what I'm getting to. And there are people who are selling their costumes as well. Now, The first factor is finances, because a lot of costume companies, mask companies, have actually now said that you have to pay off for your costume by January 30th or January 31st, something like that. When usually you put a down payment on your costume, and when you go to collect your costume, you pay the rest. However, now they're putting a deadline date even before you collect your costume, and some people are making the argument, I simply can't afford it because I would not have the money in time.
Right, yeah.
So they're putting up that. The other flip side of it, though, is, and this was rather interesting, people are selling their costumes because the number of COVID-19 cases are rising, which is not news as such. And next week, the number of deaths and the number of cases are also going to rise. Now, individuals spoke.
Oh gosh, contact tracing will be all but impossible probably by the week before Carnival. I was at a fete. They might be able to trace it as who was ever at this fete, but once people get on the road, so expect the numbers to rise.
And just before we go to our break, I'm not against Carnival. I want Carnival. I miss Carnival. I myself want to participate in events. You know, I'm not against it at all. But at the same time, I'm not going to be the fool who jeopardizes the safety of my family. Both my parents, thank God I still have both my parents. Both my parents are not very much well people. They're not better, you know. Or my father works, my mother runs a house, you know, and even my brother, he works within the public service, and my sister works as well. And the thing is that. You know, everybody has to take do their own part, take their precaution. So I'm not going to be one who's going to jeopardize the safety of, and the health of myself or my family. You know, so I want to participate. I love Carnival, but you know, I have to try and figure out a way that is most appropriate. And if I can't find that way, then I just simply can't participate.
I think right, and I'm not gonna get down or be angry at people who want to participate in Carnival. But I am like you. You know, my parents' generation is basically a generation that, you know, how many of their friends and family of their age group has passed away. So I can't take it for granted. Now, not participating in Carnival is not necessarily a big loss for me. And again, I'm not going to blame anybody that wants to participate in Carnival. I will just ask people to try to be responsible. And heaven help anybody that gets a positive COVID test, confirms that they have COVID, reasonably confirms, right? And then decides, I'm going out on the road anyway. I hope that there's going to be some preparation, if there are cases like that reported, to be dealt with criminal charges, because you might be fine, but please don't spread it.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break here on Talking Point, and when we return, one more thing to get into. It ties into the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Health. Yes, the giant African snail is a part of almost everybody's backyard setting now, and landscaping is becoming decorated by snail shells. But there's a lot to be concerned about, even though there's a bounty for snails. We'll be right back after this.
AM Prime on WESN, the only place from 6 to 7:30 a.m. where you can get the most analytical and thorough interviews and regional reports.
The Barbados Labour Party, led by the Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley, once again able to achieve a clean sweep in yesterday's general election.
I think a lot of people have underestimated the power of Tobago nationalism.
If the government is afraid to say it, I, Martin George, I am saying it this morning on your show, Andy, there will be no carnival before Ash Wednesday.
Grab a cup of coffee and start your day right watching AM Prime with Andy Johnson weekdays from 6 a.m. Only on your content capital, WESN.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back to Talking Point here on WSN Content Capital. Thank you for staying with us. The giant African snail. It's been plaguing Trinidad and Tobago's fields, gardens, backyards for quite a number of years now. But their population has exploded recently and they are a destructive species. And I can attest to that because of my mother's flowers. Anyway, yes, and my mother was very much heartbroken about her flowers and her plants. I think nobody is immune to the giant African snail. It's certainly a pest which multiplies in a very ferocious manner, I suppose. The numbers are just ridiculous. That being said, in the budget last year, read by the Minister of Finance, $3 million was allocated to the public sector investment program for the eradication of the giant African snail and other pests. Now, usually we talk about locust swarms in TNT affecting farmlands. But now this conversation has taken a different twist because it seems that the giant African snail is now at the top of the chain with respect to those who are just destroying everything. Anyway, so the Ministry of Agriculture has now implemented a $5 bounty per kg of giant African snail that are caught by individuals. The thing is, there's a flip side to it. And first of all, the Ministry of Agriculture, just to inform you, ladies and gentlemen, are not accepting crocus bags, so walk with your buckets. On the other side of it, there was one individual, this story was reported 2 days ago in a local newspaper, and I'm not entirely sure if you got a chance to read it, but a man from Tunapuna was actually cleaning out his backyard when he came in contact with some slime that is believed to be that of the giant African snail. Following that, his hand started to swell, and his wife took action by soaking it in hot water and salt. Unfortunately, the situation did not get any better and his hand continued to swell. It was decided that he had to be taken to hospital, following which doctors treated it and did an operation. Now, flip side of it is that he doesn't have use of his hand right now, and every day he has to go to the health center in order to get the wound actually bandaged. Unfortunately, that's not where the news ends. There is a major concern now that the individual may contract meningitis as per the snails and the slime. So the thing is that it's not interested actually. She's not interested. The husband was never interested in a $5 bounty. He just came into contact with this slime. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you've ever seen the giant African snail and its slime, it leaves a trail. It looks like a shiny line on your driveway, on your grass. It does leave a trail. And that you do not want to touch. So, when individuals were actually stepping on the giant African snail in order to kill them or crush them, you're taking a huge risk because you're getting slime on your slippers and you could get in contact with that anytime. You don't know where you will take it. Secondly, if you're picking up a stone to pelt the giant African snail, that's a no-no as well because people will continue to pick up the same stone and you're putting yourself in further risk because of the slime that is on this stone. So the ministry, though I have seen in the past, both from the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Agriculture, pushing an information drive where you should not contact or touch the giant African snail at all, if it is that we put out this $5 bounty per kg. By the way, some people are going to buy a fed ticket. They're going to try and find as much snails as possible to buy a fed ticket. Trust me, we live in Trinidad. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Health, I think, have again, whilst there was a campaign in the past, I'm acknowledging that, and I'm being absolutely fair to them. There's not enough of an information drive and a campaign now. There needs to be greater awareness, especially now that you've put out a $5 bounty per kg. There needs to be greater awareness because, one, the mere fact that this individual got in contact with Justice Stein and had to go to the hospital and had to have an operation, not only is it unfortunate in the sense that he can still contract meningitis, we don't know the condition of his hand as yet, it also took up hospital time and resources. And that is the thing. There's so much going around with this. We have to be absolutely careful, and it is unfortunate, in my opinion, that the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Health, who should be collaborating on this, have not spoken out enough with respect to what is the best, the most appropriate, the safest way to handle the giant African snail.
And I think when you put a bounty system on a situation to public meningitis, there's a BBC article from 2018 talking about the snail. And first of all, they gave an example of a young man that got meningitis because he had a small slug in lettuce that he ate, right? And again, this is just, I believe it's a risk with a lot of slugs and snails with the giant African snail because it's so invasive, and you could get meningitis just from touching it, yes, because the roundworm could infect you. The point that from this article that struck me was the recovery of the young man with meningitis. And because meningitis is with regards to the brain and spinal cord, inflammation of the protective membranes covering the brain and spinal cord, it affected his ability to walk and speak properly. He's not all there yet with his motor functions, basic motor functions. Now, the gentleman who touched the snail and got swelling in his hand, that might actually just be a secondary situation. I believe it's fortunate if he's not seeing more severe symptoms. And, you know, everything that we've been through with COVID and people with higher risk factors for an elderly gentleman to be at this risk, I very much hope that he has evaded the worst. But again, this is something that people need to be made more aware of. It does make me wonder if one of the things, you could evolve or you could have a revolution. Evolve is, you know, over time, but perhaps we need more revolutionary new ways to do things, to revamp things. You don't always want change for the sake of change, but I have always been less than impressed or happy with just how information services in general are in TNT. And perhaps the government could lead the way with regards to a new policy, new procedures, a new platform in order to try to make information more universal. Because again, it's an invasive species. If we want to be serious about agriculture, this is a problem that needs to be solved sooner rather than later. It's a health risk to people. I have seen multiple snails in my yard. I'm not entirely sure at the time where they go because I didn't necessarily know how to. When I say multiple snails, I mean like one snail every now and then. I don't know where they come from. I don't necessarily know how to dispose of them very well. Again, government information.
Let me give you some information on this actually, because we do not want individuals to unfortunately get ill because of this. The giant African snail actually carries something called, it's a carrier of something called the rat lungworm, which can make you seriously ill from meningitis. Now, when you actually crush a giant African snail, they actually go into a stress mode where they do not die immediately but actually release their eggs, and those eggs actually turn into other snails. So the most appropriate way to do this is to actually wear some form of waterproof material that covers your entire hand. Now just remember that you're not going to touch this material afterwards. You have to safely dispose of it by double wrapping it in garbage bag. Now, if you cannot wear that waterproof material on your hand, you have to try and get something similar to a pooper scooper that dog lovers might use to actually pick up the feces of their pets, their beloved pets. What you do is that you actually mix in a bucket of water, about 2 gallons of water. You put salt in the water. I think they're saying that roughly 2 cups of salt per gallon of water. 2 cups of salt per gallon of water. On the instances, you can use 2 gallons of bleach, 2 cups of bleach, sorry, per gallon of water. After you've now picked up the snail, again, waterproof material or pooper scooper, it's like, something similar to that. You place the snails in the bucket, and the bucket should remain closed for 24 hours. That way it kills both the eggs as well as the snail, following which you can drain the water out of the bucket in a very safe manner, and you can dispose of the shells just as how you dispose of the waterproof material. You double wrap it in a garbage bag and you throw it in the garbage, or you can bury it. They say that you should bury it roughly 2 feet deep, or you burn it. That is also an option, because remember, there are pets out there who are getting sick because of the giant African snail. So if the giant African snail is in your backyard and your pets are exposed to it, if they just decide to sniff the shell or just eat the snail, they can get seriously ill and even die.
The irony is, I think, at least when we had dogs in the backyard, I've never seen them in my backyard where the dogs were, but I've seen them by my gate. I'm like, where are you coming from? It's a dry road. I doubt you came through the road. Maybe they did, because it's always by my gate.
Remember, one way in which these snails spread to Trinidad is because if, let's say, you do landscaping, for example, and you get a load of topsoil.
Right.
And you have the snail eggs in the topsoil, or you have even small snails in the topsoil.
I never see small snails. It's always like one big snail.
Yeah, well, they grow, Sean. You wouldn't see the small snails, would you? They'll just grow over time, and that's when you'll see them. That's when you really see them.
Yeah, but if it's in the topsoil, well, I can't remember the last time that we've had
and it
doesn't
even have to come from your yard. It could come from your neighbor's yard. It could come from anywhere. So those are things to really be concerned of. As I said, it's a menace. It's a menace. I mean, yes, it's one thing that it's eating all your plants. I'm sorry, Mom. We try to do our best. It's also another thing that it can get you seriously ill. But on the minor point of it, it's just unsightly.
Now,
it's goddamn ugly, and on top of that, the slime and the trail of the slime that it leaves is actually very, very ugly and doesn't look good.
I am sure somebody is going to have the bright idea to try to kill it with fire. And I'm just going to warn people, please do not use uncontrolled fires to kill a giant African snail. All right? I do believe that what Keaton said is the safer option. Bleach water or salt water, right? I do wonder if you could actually just, directly put salt on them, what would happen. But
if you put salt on them directly, again, they dissolve. They're like, I think a snail is like almost like 95% water. And the thing is that they would dissolve. Now, don't get me wrong, ladies and gentlemen, you cannot eat the giant African snail. I know some of you out there tempted to try escargot. That's not what escargot is.
I didn't want to go there, but apparently in some places they are. The thing is, you have to know how to prepare it, and it's of questionable nutritional value.
We ain't going down that road at all. But listen,
now some people are gonna try it.
In the dry season, we have some hooligans out there who like to be very destructive because idle hands are the devil's playground. Listen. Do not, please, play with fire is one thing. When the dry season as well, don't take that chance. And also, if you just throw salt in it, it's going to dissolve, it's going to liquidate, and again, it's just going to leave slime all over the place, which is not eradicating it.
So then do it in, water, salt water.
1 gallon of water, 2 cups of salt, or 2 cups of bleach. Place the snail in it gently with either waterproof material if you're handling it. Remember, you have to properly dispose of that material afterwards, or a pooper scooper. Place it in the bucket for 24 hours, following which safely dispose of the water and dispose of the shells by double wrapping it in a garbage bag, burying it 2 feet deep, or burning it.
Folks, it does not take much to get infected. That's why you have to be very careful, right? It really doesn't take much.
So this gentleman in Tunapuna who really has a scare and is still under very much heavy guard, medical guard and attention, wish you all the best, sir. We're sorry that you have to go through this. I mean, yes, it's a speedy recovery. Listen, we have to break for news on the hour. I think we're a little late, we're a little over time, but when we return, we open up the phone lines and, well, why not? Cheer Sean and I up. It's Friday. We haven't smiled much for the morning except for Sean's 3 breakfasts. We'll be right back after.
3 breakfasts. It's one breakfast.
Here's your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. IATF seized guns, ammo, marijuana in Beetham Gardens. 3 men convicted of drug trafficking charges fined $55,500. TTPS warns parents of children involved in gang-related activity. And internationally, Palestinian killed while administering first aid. Now for the details. 2 firearms, a quantity of ammunition, and 4 packets of marijuana were allegedly seized by officers of the Interagency Task Force during a crime eradication exercise in Beetham Gardens. According to police reports, during the period 9 p.m. on January 17th and 1 a.m. on January 18th, IATF personnel were conducting the exercise, which led them to 6th Street, Beetham Gardens, where a group of men were gathered in an alleyway. While approaching the group on foot, the men escaped. Police, however, searched the area and allegedly found a bag containing cannabis. The Operation Police mounted another search of the area where, after searching a heap of garbage on the roadway, they discovered a black plastic bag containing a Smith & Wesson .38 revolver loaded with 3 rounds of ammunition and a Taurus pistol with 2 magazines, each fitted with ammunition. 3 men who pleaded guilty to drug possession and trafficking charges were fined $55,500 by a Sangre Grande magistrate. 35-year-old Nigel George of Graham Trace Extension, Foster Road, was fined $2,500 on a possession of cocaine trafficking charge, or in default faced 3 months hard labor. George was also fined $7,500 or faced 9 months hard labor on a cannabis possession charge. He was allowed 6 months to pay the fines. Meanwhile, last Thursday, Kevin Daniel and David Lovelace, both of Buttercup Avenue Northeastern Settlement, Sangre Grande, who also pleaded guilty to drug possession and trafficking charges, were fined $40,000 and $5,500 respectively by a senior magistrate. Parents of children involved in gang-related activity will be held accountable for their actions. A reassurance from Senior Superintendent Kerwin Francis, who pleaded with parents to do the right thing at the police conference on Thursday.
I want to appeal to parents of minors, the parents who are supporting them in being members of gangs and harboring them in their gang-related activities. Our investigations will consider your conduct in these matters, and prosecution will be on the table for consideration.
In international news now, Israeli forces shot dead a 57-year-old Palestinian teacher who went to give first aid to a fatally wounded militant, according to paramedics and the man's family. The father of 6 was killed outside his family home in Jenin refugee camp. It came during a night of Israeli army raids in the occupied West Bank. His death raises the number of Palestinians killed this month to 17, including civilians and militants. Well, that was your news to the hour on WESN. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back to Talking Point here on WSN Content Capital. Thank you very much to Denise Martin for news on the hour. Ladies and gentlemen, let's open up the phone lines now. We'll give you, the viewer, the opportunity to comment on this morning's program or any of the topics of which we touched on or discussed. If there's anything that Sean and I did not discuss or raise and you'd like to, sure, no problem. You can raise your concerns, your thoughts and opinions. We just ask you to be mindful of the time. Please do not call in at the 11th hour. Give yourself the opportunity from now. I'm sorry, I think my director just mentioned something with respect to the numbers, right?
Yes, both numbers are up.
Oh yes, it's true.
Because
both numbers are working this morning.
Yeah. TSTT came in and managed to deal with the situation, a technician, and I believe, I'm not too sure if she was a senior technician or a senior administrator, came in to try to deal with the problem. So as much as my colleague has been giving them thunder, and to some extent rightfully so, to be honest, because...
The thunder worked.
Well,
did
the thunder on air work, or did a detailed phone call to senior management
multiple detailed phone calls?
That is true.
And the thunder worked. Oh, by the way, the thunder works sometimes because maybe I'm just being rather stupid. A caller called in yesterday and suggested that the show is far-reaching because sometimes you hear, certain individuals responding to it. I mentioned for a while now on this program the state of roads in TNT, French Street, for example, in Woodbrook, Stone Street as well. I kept saying that Stone Street was appropriately named that way because there was more stone than actual road on the street. Guess what, Sean? They paved Stone Street. The best road in Trinidad and Tobago right now is Stone Street. Perfect, no pothole. And guess what? Wasa going to come sometime over the weekend to dig it up for whatever reason. They ain't dig it up.
There was a water leak? No,
I'm just saying that's what always happens.
Just wait, it'll happen in a matter of time. Folks, call in. This is the last talking point for the week. Of course, you could speak about anything that has occurred over the week. You don't have to limit it to what we've been talking about today. If you want to talk about the situation, the Commissioner of Police. Oh boy, look at that. Here we go again. From one acting to the next. I do believe the current acting commissioner, she's had her vacation time bought out so she could continue to serve until a commissioner is appointed. But folks, just want to say, please call in now. Don't call in later and tie up the lines. We have a caller on the line already from Chaguanas. Also, try and be fast so that others have a time to make a point. But with that said, good morning, caller.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Good morning.
Yesterday, you disagreed with me when I queried your guest.
And
you said we were saying the same thing.
Yes.
But hold on. You disagree with us all the time, so
No, that is not true.
Anyway, go ahead.
Not like you. You agree with everything everybody says. So that's a difference.
I don't think you watched the show from beginning to end. Well, go ahead.
I went back and look at your repeat.
Oh, well, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
And I look very blaming the population for the problem. I have always blamed the government for the problem. That is the difference. And that is where law and order come in, gentlemen, unless you have a sensible question to this.
No sensible ones, only stupid ones, so we might not, we shouldn't.
Actually, Professor, that point that you made, ironically, I will agree again. I'll tell you why. Thank you. I'll respond off air so we don't, well, we have two phone lines now, so it's not. But in the news, the TTPS, they're telling families to don't harbor criminals and encourage their kids to not be involved in criminal activity and all of those things with regards to their family members being in gangs. And I thought to myself, yes, we have to do our part, but it's really, really hard. You don't necessarily have the incentive to do your part if you feel as though the other party is not, holding up their end of the bargain. So it's a catch-22, right? It's psychologically, it is difficult when, because, we still want people to do the right thing. If we do the right thing and then say the police or the judiciary or the lawyers or whoever doesn't do the right thing, then it's their fault. We did the right thing. But it is hard to, do our part and then the authorities or whichever agency is not holding up its end of the bargain. So I get what you're saying, Professor. It's not so simple to say, oh, well, it's the people's fault and it's the population's fault, the society's fault because we're lazy or whatever. No, it is really hard to be involved when it seems as though nobody wants to be involved, including the people that's supposed to be, the most involved.
You can say all of that in one sentence, Sean. You don't have to say it all like that. Simply do your job. Do your job.
That's not what I meant.
That's not what I meant. I don't know.
You missed the point.
Maybe I was lost in translation. I was lost in translation. You
wasn't the point.
You lost me after some time, man.
That wasn't the point.
You lost me. Sorry, I haven't.
I mean, you do that to me all the time.
I haven't had my breakfast as yet. So.
You do that to me all the time. I haven't had my breakfast as yet either, right? But with that said, so Professor, I actually agree with the point. I thought about that when seeing the story, and it made me rethink, because I am the one to tell people we have to do our part. But it's not that simple. It really is at times disheartening and demotivating. And it's not necessarily, as you rightfully say, it's not the population's fault solely or even first, right? But in some things we do still have a part to play. Government is our leaders, and we follow their lead, their guidance, and their example.
We have a caller now with us from
I don't know if this is a response here.
Good morning, caller.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hey, we talk about the African snail.
Yes.
And we talk about the about COVID and all of that. My thing is, you have to strengthen your immune system. I'm an old fella. Okay, so I haven't been vaccinated. Every time I try to, I attempted to get it done, something happened. So I changed my mind. But I am taking herbs. And I implore other people to do the same. I know it will ruffle a lot of feathers. Maybe it will be like a pillow fight. But I have faith in the herbal products. And they can do the same. Because there was a book that came out in 1980. About the eyes of, it's called the eyes of darkness. And all that is happening today was is mentioned in the book.
Interesting.
So, be safe and love yourself and love others.
Certainly.
Okay, that's all I can say.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you, caller.
You're very welcome.
I like that last message, love yourself and love others. But with respect to herbs or bush medicine, as some people say, I think there are lots of benefits to it. I don't think it's the answer to everything, but I will share a secret. It's actually not even a secret. When I contracted COVID-19 and I was ill at home, my breathing for the first few days were absolutely terrible. I was actually rather scared. Fever was high and the cough was terrible. But what really helped more than anything else was turmeric, ginger, clove, and honey. There was something else in it, I can't remember, but that was all boiled together.
Yeah.
I think tulsi leaf as well, if I'm not mistaken. It was all boiled together, and I drank it, and it tasted absolutely horrible, but it worked.
I had a very bad sore throat from a bacterial infection that came with the virus. And so when you get COVID, one of the things is if you end up in hospital, that's one of the things that they have to do. The antibiotics that they might give you, in part, is for the secondary infection, and if it has any antiviral properties, but mainly for that secondary infection, from what I understand. A doctor could correct me. For me, it was just citrus and heavy lime just to soothe the burn. This was the worst sore throat I ever had. And citrus was just about the only thing. Strepsils and all of that stuff, lozenges and all of those other things, it didn't really work, but citrus helped. The thing is, we are what we eat. So first of all, just general diet, having good nutrition, herbs, you know, and those sorts of things, herbs and spices and so on, ginger, etc., garlic, they do have health benefits, you know, certain fruits, certain vegetables, etc. And to some extent, especially certain properties in meats. So long run, yes, this is good. I just don't necessarily think, look, you could do all of that, but you should also seek medical advice.
I don't think it's a be-all
and utilize modern medicine as well.
Caller on the line with us from Diego Martin. Good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Yes, concerning COVID, I think it's a personal choice if you want to take the injection or not.
It is.
Because I would not be taking any injections again. If I do have to take, I'll take the Sinopharm. I think that is good. It worked well, right? I think that you try, that's what he said here, for the turmeric and butter and ginger and thing. I use those things, but I use them separately. I don't mix them together. Because I've noticed that mixing it, you don't get the real potency of the things.
Possibly.
One tend to break down the other one. But turmeric and ginger is excellent. But with turmeric, you just have to be careful with it because it thins the blood.
Yes, yes.
So you have to make sure and monitor that. But
absolutely right.
Otherwise, take care of yourself. I mean, you know what you have to do. You know danger in life, everything is right and wrong. You choose which is the thing is right and which is wrong. And you make those decisions and carry on in your life. Cannot study these ministries of health and I don't know. They're trying to promote something and then if you think you want purpose by having Iowa George and jumping up and hugging up and very small and trying to woo the public. They don't bring it smarter than that these days. So, gentlemen, you have a good morning and a blessed weekend.
Thank you, sir. Same to you.
Thank you, Caller.
Have a good day. You see, the unfortunate thing is, Caller, everybody like a jump and a dance.
Some people will be convinced by that sort of thing. It's not for everybody.
That's
it's
actually
not going to work with everybody.
Trinis respond to, at least a lot of them. And so having Iowa, Georgia is what Trinis understand, is what some of them actually respond
to. Not all
to.
Trinis, but enough that it's not invalid.
Again, Bushmaster, not the be all and all, but you see this turmeric ginger thing, there are a lot of benefits to it. As I said,
I think, well, in general, eating ginger
that
is
thing
good.
burns your throat, but it really is good for you. And
you don't cook with ginger,
of course. Yeah. I'm talking about, have you ever drank the tea where they've boiled turmeric, ginger, and garlic? You've never drank that, have you?
No, I've never drank that.
Yeah. We're going to make some for sure.
That.
But the thing is, we have a colleague actually whose breakfast, funny enough, is a bottle of water every morning and 3 cloves of garlic, raw garlic.
Yeah.
Just eats the garlic.
Yep.
You know, that's it. And he goes on, works every day, sometimes 7 days a week, and goes on, and is absolutely done tremendously well.
The thing is, with the vaccine, and we don't know what the efficacy rates are, we know that it more or less, as new variants came on, to prevent infection, it got less and less from the initial highs of 80-something and 90-something% to, I don't know, I would guess something like, 60% or some. I think those were some of the rates that was being thrown out there with the later variants that tried to discredit each other's, the competitors' vaccine. It is a personal choice because the main thing that the vaccine will protect is you, right? You being responsible and not necessarily going out in a reckless manner, that's how you try to help protect your household. But at the end of the day, we've reached a point where we can't lock down, we do have to go out, there will always be some level of risk. COVID is very infectious. It is a difficult way to live. With regards to the need for the society to be vaccinated, given that we've had natural immunity and vaccination in about half of the population, natural immunity in the other half, we are about as protected, generally speaking, as we could probably expect. I think, though, with individuals, I mean, the vaccine will still help, help boost it up. So it can help you, but also for people with risk factors, I think that's really my concern. And the people who I would still like to see vaccinated if they could, because we have deaths that are still going on, and we don't know for sure how many are preventable, but I would like to think some of them would have been prevented by the vaccine.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I know that this morning we had a lot of rain. I know this morning it was very cold, so I know that some of you are probably still enjoying the benefits of your warm, comfortable bed or your cup of tea. Some of you actually are at work and your kids are at school this morning. But it is Friday.
It's still a weekend.
Let's feel alive, let's feel uplifted, and somebody give me some good news, please. Are there any sales on cakes anywhere, any in the restaurant deals? Because I think we could do with that, actually. It'd be nice to go out for a bit and treat ourselves.
I mean, these days a restaurant deal, Keaton. Folks, call in if you know about any restaurant deals that you think are worth it. Because these days, the restaurant deal is to make things to go from expensive to less expensive. It's not necessarily making things affordable. The prices that we have to pay, I am campaigning internally to get a kitchen in the office so we could cook in the office lunch.
And now my point with respect to
let's see if the thunder can help here.
Validated. Now, The thunder is not going to help. Because you see, the thing is that if there is a full-fledged kitchen in the office, and we have a kitchen, by the way, what Sean is advocating for, he wants a stove in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Right? If we have a stove in the kitchen...
It's an office kitchen, not a kitchen.
Between Sean's pork soup, 6 pizzas and pepper nuts, this entire office
First of all,
is going...
The pizzas are ordered.
Right?
Right?
No. The thing is, somebody's going to try and make 6 pizzas.
No. Right? Who's going to try and make 6 pizzas?
You don't know the people in this office, do you?
Oh, you have a point there.
Right? Between that and pepper nuts and Sean's
but the pepper nuts happened already. The pepper. What was Sean's? What Africa says Sean's pork soup?
I am entirely against having a stove.
You just jealous because you never tasted the soup.
I was actually fine not tasting the soup. I was perfectly fine.
That's your problem because nobody else said the soup is bad.
I am perfectly fine. But anyway, listen. I'm hearing somebody laughing in the background. They're probably saying, oh, come on, Keaton and Sean, you're talking nonsense now. It's supposed to be a serious program. Actually, we're just trying to make it a light program because it is Friday.
It is Friday.
And to be honest with you, it's you know, the 2 weeks in January and same old Trinidad. But like I said, we are grateful for certain things and small blessings. And
I'm not going to lie, I really hoped that COVID was in the rearview mirror, slowly but surely, you know, being lost over the horizon in the distance. And here it is again. And on top of that, you know, we're still dealing with the recovery phase from what happened before and the fallout of of issues that COVID, like crime, COVID suppressed crime for a little while and then it came back in full force. So I'm not really looking forward. I honestly expect numbers to rise, but to say, do I know what's going to happen after Carnival for sure, how bad it will get?
All right, okay.
I don't know.
We're redundant. I think I'm going to take a quick break here on the program because I'm having some difficulties with my mic here, funny enough. I'm not hearing too well. So let's take a quick break here on the program. And when we return, well, we wrap things up for this morning's edition of Talking Point. See you in a bit.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best birthday tickets are at dbesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
The continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the right and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
AM Prime on WESN, the only place from 6 to 7:30 a.m. where you can get the most analytical and thorough interviews and regional reports.
The Barbados Labour Party, led by the Prime Minister Mia Motley, once again able to achieve a clean sweep in yesterday's general election.
I think a lot of people have underestimated the power of Tobago nationalism.
If the government is afraid to say it, I, Martin George, I am saying it this morning on your show, Andy, there will be no carnival before Ash Wednesday.
Grab a cup of coffee and start your day right watching AM Prime with Andy Johnson weekdays from 6 a.m. Only on your content capital, WESN.
Welcome back to Talking Point. Thank you very much. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen, but sometimes that's just how television is. But anyway, there was a caller during the ad break, and we do apologize for that. The phone lines were closed, but you can call back next week, Monday. We just have about 2.5 minutes left for this morning's edition, and as we wrap up this week, Sean, as I said, the Electoral College meets at 1:30 p.m. this afternoon to elect the 7th President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Very much tipped to be Christine Kangaloo, the nomination put forward by the government.
I am willing to see how things unfold.
Don't have a choice.
Right, but I think I wasn't necessarily, I don't think it was something that, okay, we need to block and, everything, we have to stop this or else, the whole world is coming to an end for TNT. I'm willing, because again, when Kamala was elected to Prime Minister, I was willing to give her a chance. When Dr. Keith Rowley was elected as Prime Minister, I was willing to give him a chance. I wasn't using my pre-existing opinion on them before, in their roles before, to just judge them before, okay, they're in a new role, how will they be? Sometimes people could be quite different. Sometimes, they are who they presented them to be. Sometimes it's somewhere in the middle. With the new potential President, Christine Kangaloo, I never necessarily got the sense that she was egregious with how she handled the Senate. So hopefully that will continue. However, the flip side is you would not have necessarily thought that the outgoing president, who, at least publicly had a very apolitical public profile, would be so questionable with regards to how she handled.
I will say that you have raised very fair points, but I will only counteract it by asking one simple question.
Mm-hmm.
How often and to what extent did you view Senate sittings?
True, fair enough. I didn't watch all.
Right.
Obviously, I didn't watch all.
Just curious to know how often and to what extent.
But the few times that I did, and few is relative, folks, I've lost count how many times I had to attract those debates. At least, maybe it's because I'm grading it on a curve, so compared to her peer, she wasn't quite as bad.
Don't grade on a curve. Anyway, as we close this morning's program, Sean Michael Small, thank you very much. Week in Trinidad and Tobago has come to an end. Some might argue that since Wednesday or yesterday. But listen, this weekend, please be careful in all that you do. Stacey never left us. It's still with us, but it's just coming back a bit more aggressively now. If you're handling the giant African snail, I totally disagree with this $5 bounty because there's supposed to be individuals who are doing their jobs and are now giving a $5 bounty. People like vagrants and scrapmen are the ones who are most vulnerable because they will try to actually pick up the snails if they can, and they will get sick, and you never know, you might find somebody lying dead on the side of the road for the first time without any gunshot wounds or nothing like that. It's just because I think a lot more should have been done or put in place, a lot more could have been said. But people, please just be careful. Please be absolutely careful. Do your part. Do your best to